morning I'm mixing up some Total Fair epoxy fairing compound, and I'm going to spread this over these hatch lids just to get them smooth. Right now it's just a rough fiberglass cloth resin. So I will just trowel this over them, get it as smooth as I can quickly, and then let it dry, and then come back and sand it out, and that'll give me a nice smooth surface to put my barrier coat on and then gel coat or paint. But it's a great product. It's flexible to a large degree once it's applied, so it's good for areas where you have slight movement, like on the side of a hull or something like that, or in this case a lid for a storage compartment. And the nice thing about it is it sands fairly easy for an epoxy, and when you sand it out, you almost never have any kind of little pinholes or anything in it like you do with some of the other brands. It leaves a very smooth finish. I like to kind of spread it out thin like that, and you can see real quickly if you have any areas that's not properly mixed. And then I like to keep it spread out thin on the board too, to give me a little bit more working time. This stuff hardens fairly quickly, 2 or 3 hours. It's usually sandable at 2 or 3 hours. It's fairly forgiving on your mix too. I don't try to weigh it or measure it or anything like that. I just put a blob on either side of my spreading board, and if it looks about like it's the same size, I go for it. I've never had it to not harden good. Mixed the right ratio. Try to force it down into the coarse texture of the fiberglass. I did, it's been sanded and cleaned with acetone. I'm really trying to work it down into that coarse texture a little bit. Alcohol. Try to pull some of the excess off of it, just so that I don't have to do quite so much sanding. Well, it's the next morning, and I've got these things sanded down. I sanded them with 40 grit and 180 grit. I'll leave a little bit of tooth for the next coat. The next coat will be barrier paint or barrier epoxy. And I'm going to mix that up. I use a powder mixed in with my West Systems is what I've got on hand, so that's what I'll be using. Works okay. And the main reason why I'm putting the barrier paint on these things is I need to do that to separate this fairing compound from my gel coat, because I'm going to probably gel coat. And that gives me something that the gel coat will bond to. And I've had real good success doing it this way. I haven't had anything fail doing it this way. And you can see where I've sanded through the fairing compound into the glass a touch here and there. One of the main things about the fairing compound is it gives you something to sand without sanding into your glass, destroying what you worked so hard to build. So you're sanding like a sacrificial layer, if you will, rather than getting into your structural and you can see the discolorations here and there where there were high spots and low spots. And also, if you remember, I mixed up 2 batches, so I had slightly different colors going on, and that's part of what that is. The other one actually is a lot smoother color wise, and I had one high spot right here that went through the fairing compound and hit the glass just a little bit there. But all that's good. I'm going to put at least 2 coats of barrier paint on it and then let that cure for 2 or 3 days before I put gel coat on it. This is a West System 422 barrier coat additive that I can just add into my West Systems epoxy. Comes in handy sometimes. These turned out pretty good. What I did yesterday, glassed out the backside with the chop shred mat. Just gave it a very light sanding to get rid of any little meat hooks that might be still sticking out. The first coat of the barrier paint doesn't cover as well as you think. It always takes that second, third one. The first one goes on almost translucent. The second coat really starts to cover good, and this will get sanded again. I'm going to try to time my coats so that I can put them on wet on tacky, so I don't have to sand between coats, but my final coat I'll have to sand out and de-wax before I put on my gel coat. Just put second coat on them. Leave well enough alone. Okay, so I've got the 2 panels or hatches finished and sanded with 220 grit. I'm getting ready to wipe them down with some acetone, and then I'm going to just leave them for the weekend and let them cure really, really good. And then first of the week I'll put on my gel coat. Gel coat time. I'm putting my final coat of gel coat on these panels here, on these hatches. This coat I'm putting a mixed wax in with it. So I've got wax and hardener. So that'll seal off everything. This will be my third coat. And that should give me plenty for sanding, hopefully where I won't sand through when I try to get it all polished out. In case you're wondering, I am right beside an open doorway, and I also have a big squirrel cage blower fan blowing out the door, to keep the fresh air flowing through right past me here. So not outside, but close to it as far as airflow. I've got good airflow, and I'm not going to be out here but just a few minutes, and then I'm going to be out of here because the xylene, or the styrene, I guess it is, that's in the wax and the gel coat, it's pretty potent stuff. Okay, I've got my 2 panels gel coated. I put 3 coats of gel coat on it. I brushed one that direction, then I brushed one this direction, then I brushed another one that direction. And in the 3rd coat, I put the wax additive as well as hardener. The 1st and 2nd coat, I had hardener in it only. Hardened everything up, and so now it's nice and hard and dry, cured out. I'm gonna wet sand it, and I'm gonna start out with 220. With this is water that's just got just a touch of Dawn dishwashing soap in it, just a little bit. But I'm gonna hit it with 220 just very lightly, just to get rid of some of the absolute worst little bumps and crevices or whatever, just kind of knock it down quick. and then I'll switch over to a very fine sandpaper and work my way all the way up to, you know, at least like a 2000 grit kind of thing, to try to get it pretty smooth, and then I'll probably come back and polish it out. I'm not going to use my power sander on these rounded corners at all. I'll do that by hand, because with the power sander you'll go right through it real quickly. So that quickly got rid of my little bumps here and there, raised places. I've still got a few little depressions, you know, where the brush marks, I guess you could say, in it. So I will have to sand it a good little bit. But that's pretty good right there. So I'm going to take this and take it out to my water hose and wash this off, just to get rid of the grittiness that was in that first sanding. I'll go wash all this off and then come back and start sanding it with my hand sander. But you can see it's almost like a gel coat slurry, you know, from sanding. You sand off a good bit of the gel coat to get it down smooth. You see what happens there. You know, it's just like a slurry. But the wet sanding does more polishing, I guess you could say, than leaving a circular gritty, you know, scratches in the finish. When you wet sand it, it's almost a polish from the material that's, you know, left there in that slurry itself, and it doesn't leave scratches everywhere. And that's looking pretty good right there. I'm going to go take the water hose and wash this up good again, get rid of some of that grit, and then move to a finer grit paper. Okay, they're already looking pretty good. This is 1500 grit here, and this is maybe as far as I take them. Like I say, a different situation I would be going further than this, but for this particular boat, I think this is going to be more than adequate. You can see even that 1500 grit, you know, it's definitely removing material. All right, I'm gonna go wash that one up good. I think I'm gonna call that one good. Okay, there they are, finished. The gel coat is finished. Well, let me back up. I still want to take my buffer and put a little compound on them and compound them, and then polish them out with some real fine polishing compound, and then wax them. But other than that, they're done. They turned out pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're not too bad. And like I said, this is just an old fishing boat. So, and you can see I've got holes up here to patch. Where some seats or something were mounted up here. I've got to patch a bunch of little holes here and there, and some holes up here where a trolling motor used to be. And the underside, I'm going to just paint the underside with some white bilge coat and call it good. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.